JoeBudden tells Melyssa Ford her contract is coming up soon. That's right, on a recent episode of JoeBudden's Patreon, JoeBudden let Melyssa Ford know that her contract is up in July. Now, what does this mean for the show moving forward? As ever since she has arrived, Melyssa Ford has gone through a series of ups and downs. Initially, when she was on as a guest, I think JoeBudden saw something special in Melyssa Ford. He could finally find the woman co-host that had eluded him for so long. Remember when he brought on Melyssa? Didn't work out. Remember when he tried all those women co-hosts on his other shows? They didn't work out. But then when Melyssa Ford arrived, it looked like she would be the one to break the bad luck. But then you would find out that wasn't the case. And she was largely on the podcast to rebrand herself and wouldn't give up any quote-unquote hoe stories. Still, she unlocked many of the top moments of the show over the last few years. Maybe not so much in a good way, but with the B-Box episode with Ish, also the Cameron fiasco, and when she said Eddie Griffin was out there with the dogs wilding, but she really meant Cat Williams. Yeah, those things blew up in her face, but they did lead to large visibility for the show. And she also struggled to find her chemistry, specifically with the Newark boys, who I don't think really took kindly to her women over everything persona. But she still persisted on the show, was very professional, and now her contract may be up in July. But here's the thing. JoeBudden did say that he wanted her back. Now, does JoeBudden really mean this? Does he really like Melyssa Ford on the show? Or is he setting the groundwork for her to think about how to be on the show? Like, when these negotiations happen, is Joe just going to say, hey, the same contract terms are going to be fine? Whatever you want to do, Melyssa Ford, we just really want you back. Or is he going to say, Melyssa Ford, I need you to be a little bit more different. What you did the last 2 years isn't going to work for me. I need you to go to the wall. Be a little bit more vulnerable. Because JoeBudden has been coaching her. JoeBudden has been trying to get her to open up more. She's been on the show for almost 2 years. I don't know if that's ever going to come. And JoeBudden also mentioned how Melyssa Ford has an acting career that is burgeoning. And mentioned, oh, maybe this could be where she leaves. It seems like Lifetime had her in a 360. This is what JoeBudden said. So, what are we going to do about time off? Will Melyssa Ford be allowed to pursue her career while she's on the biggest podcast in the space? Also, what do the fans think? Do they want Melyssa Ford back? Do they want her to leave? And what about the Newark boys, who never seem to get on the same page with Melyssa Ford? Then there's Queen's Flip, who I don't know if he's going to be around for much longer, but you know, it kind of seems like he wants it to be over. I think Joe wants it to be over. I think at some point Joe will be tired of dealing with Queen's Flip's A-Mike persona, right? He's the only A-Mike JoeBudden has ever worked with. Let that sink in. He's the only A-Mike JoeBudden has ever worked with. At some point, the A-Mike will want to be the A-Mike again. And we've been seeing more of that lately with Flip. But I think Melyssa Ford is okay with playing the background. But just because JoeBudden says he wants to sign Melyssa Ford doesn't mean everything is honky-dory. I'm sure he has his metrics that demonstrate where Melyssa Ford needs to change. But if I had to do the science, I think JoeBudden is acutely aware of Melyssa Ford's ability to generate big moments for the show. She also has a past in media. And I think Joe just wants her on the show, man. He wants a pretty girl on the show. Who wouldn't? Who wouldn't want a pretty girl on the show? You know, I think when she left, JoeBudden when she left for the Lifetime movie, I think JoeBudden was like, oh man, he really missed her. He really missed the energy that she brought. And I think Joe knows the devil you know is a better option than the devil that you don't know. What is he going to do? Get another woman? Because if you look at the history of the JoeBudden podcast, Melyssa Ford is the only woman that kind of worked out. You know, she didn't leave. She didn't try to accuse Joe of anything. Now, I'm not saying that's liable to change. Anything can happen in the media game. But it doesn't look like that's what Melyssa Ford is there for. And you can even look how she's held it down for other dudes. Like, I'm sure I can almost guarantee she's dealt with inappropriate behavior from men in her whole career. So the fact that she hasn't said anything about that could give keen insights into kind of how she'll hold it down with Joe. I think Joe likes that. I think Joe respects it. And even though it leads to her not having any stories on the show, it makes her a good person to work for the JoeBudden Network. But let me know what you think. How will this end? Will Melyssa Ford actually resign? It's one thing to say that you want somebody back. It's another thing to bring them back. Remember, this happened on JoeBudden's Patreon, so check it out. Fascinating discussion. Melyssa Ford wants to be back on the JoeBudden podcast, and JoeBudden seemingly wants her back. All right, y'all. Follow me on Instagram, The Stop TV. Follow me on Twitter, The Stop TV. This is Danny from The Stop. Peace.